Hi, Filmatics. Welcome to the show. Thanks for tuning in. Today, we have an amazing and special guest for you. We have David Silverman, director and producer for The Simpsons. Let's welcome David to the show. Hi, David. Welcome to the show.
How you doing? Hello, everybody out there. Nice to be here.
You actually work on one of the most iconic animation shows ever. We can't wait to ask.
It's been on for a couple of years, about 3-4 decades. No, it's been a remarkably long time. And if you ask us what's the secret to our longevity, we all say we don't know. And we love being on it. We love the fact that people seem to like it because that's probably why it's been on so long. So I don't know.
Yeah. How can you go wrong? How can you go wrong with Ya Kayamba, dude?
Kayamba, actually, but yeah.
So, well, everyone wants to just ask me, so growing up, did you have a favorite film that you just loved?
No, I have several favorite films. I don't have one. I don't have one of anything. People ask me that all the time. Do you have a favorite of fill in the blank? And the answer is no, I don't have a favorite. I have a myriad of favorites because I would say as an artist and a filmmaker, you don't have one film, I don't think. You have so many because there are so many things that you're inspired by and so many things to choose from. Because it can't be like one of the earliest influences I had was Chaplin. My parents, when I was 5 years old, took me to a double bill of Modern Times and The Gold Rush, which did make a huge impression upon me, not only for Chaplin and his comedy, but for silent films in general. And that led to a love. And at 5 years old, I was very impressed. It was so nice. I said, you have to take me twice. Me and my brother, we both loved it. And I think the assembly line scene in Modern Times always, to this day, is one of my favorite scenes, just in terms of visual and cinema and just what you can do without dialogue. But on the other hand, I also love dialogue. And later in life, I got very enamored by the films of Preston Sturges.
Oh, my favorite, The Weenie King.
Great. Comes from The Great McGinty and Christmas in July and Sullivan's Travels, The Palm Beach Story, Lady Eve, Hail the Conquering Hero. I mean, they're all good, folks. Miracle on Morgan's Creek, you got to see them all. They're really inspiring. By the way, that would be the Coen brothers' favorite filmmaker is Preston Sturges. And if you see Preston Sturges, you'll understand why. Particularly if you see Sullivan's Travels, because the book he wants to make a movie out of is called Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou? A little trivia for you all. I assume many of you people know that. But anyhow, a great influence and probably the most amazing screenwriter of the genre of screwball comedy. And just in terms of writing, and then he became the first writer-director. Very, very interesting story how he did that. He tried to sell his film that he wrote on spec called The Great McGinty, and at Paramount he said, I will direct it if you buy it for $1. And They said, okay. Of course, then the legal department says, well, we can't do that. It doesn't look good. We have to pay you $10. Anyhow. And he became the first time you saw the credit, I think the first time it said written and directed by Preston Sturges, at least in the talkie era. That was the first time because he was a screenwriter who was also a director. Very quickly led the way for people like John Huston and, of course, Orson Welles, and et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, I mean, there's two already. And, of course, Alfred Hitchcock, another big influence on me as a kid, particularly when I saw North by Northwest. And I say particularly the crop dusting scene, a remarkable scene done in pantomime. And when I still look at it, just wow, just the planning, because it's completely basically without dialogue. Just the whole thing. It's amazing montage of imagery and just timing, because it's all timing. There's no music. There's nothing to cut to. It's just a space of figuring out how much time do you want for this shot, how much time you want for that shot. Very inspiring. Then, of course, I have to point to the films of Disney. When I was a kid, I saw Mary Poppins. I must have seen it about 20 times, which was the only way you could see it again. Of course, there was no home video because I'm an old fella. I would say, believe it or not only the the film was complete magic when it first came out in 1964 or 65. It was the most magical film that anyone had ever really seen. And it's a combination of visuals and matte paintings and animation. And the animation in that film really did inspire me more so than probably other things to become an animator. And I'd already been enamored with animation. As a kid, I loved watching, of course, Looney Tunes cartoons, the Bugs Bunny show, and of course, Huckleberry Hound and Yogi Bear and Quick Draw McGraw. And then there was the Beanie and Cecil show by former Warner's animator Bob Crampett, and of course the Rocky and Bullwinkle show, which I thought was amazing, even though I didn't understand half the jokes. But my dad did, and tried to explain them. By the way, that's a very different, eclectic group of styles of animation. You have the Warner style of animation, you have the Disney style of animation, you have the limited animation of Jay Ward and the Rocky and Bullwinkle. But as a kid, I loved it all. I was like, I get it. Okay, they have more dough or more time, whatever. But it's all great storytelling. So everything. And a final thing that influenced me, which is in film, but I recommend it to anybody who wants to be who's a cartoonist and interested in drawing, you might even know, is a guy named Walt Kelly, who did a comic called Pogo. And brilliantly drawn, brilliantly written, and incredibly well written, and incredibly well drawn, because Walt Kelly was a former Disney animator. And so it all keeps going, all these influences keep coming back to me, because one of my favorite Disney animators is Ward Kimball, who did the great Mad Tea Party scene in Alice in Wonderland. Well, his best friend at Disney was Walt Kelly. So I'm thinking all these connections, I keep connecting. Another great influence in terms of design is Mary Blair. Mary Blair is a brilliant designer at Disney and a color stylist, but also great. Well, she designed It's a Small World After All. That's probably the biggest influence in terms of the physicality of her style, especially the clock facade out front. But also she did a lot of illustration for the Little Golden Books. Now, the Little Golden Books were very keen, sort of things that you read as kids. And I didn't realize I was just getting assaulted from all sides by all these people who were doing everything. It's amazing, because you look at you look at all these other people. There was a guy named Phil Eastman, who did great children's books like Go Dog Go, former Disney animator, actually probably former storyman. There was a funny cartoon strip called Big George, done by a guy named Virgil Parch, another former Disney storyman. So it's interesting. It's amazing. By the way, many animators became pretty good friends of Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston. And they said during the Depression, Disney Studio was like this big WPA work project for artists, because there was less work out there for illustration and commercial art because it was a Depression. Somebody's working at Disney. That's why I had this incredible pool of talent back then. So the influences are vast. And the final influence was music. You can't see it, ladies and gentlemen, but I have many a tuba in the back here.
He does.
But music has played a great part in my upbringing, and actually music connects to the art that I first did and first got, let's say, sold, from doing a caricature of the National Symphony Orchestra of Washington, D.C., where I grew up in the D.C. area, to when I first got to L.A. and doing drawings for the Los Angeles Times. And the music critic at the time, the late Martin Bernheimer, I started drawing for him. So that sort of got the ball rolling for me artistically, was doing that. Oh, and then later that led to doing drawings for a company called Alfred Publishing. And that's how I was doing illustration as well as studying animation at UCLA.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. So you grew up in DC. So when did you start drawing? Were you a little kid just drawing, or how did you get interested in drawing?
I think I started drawing at 4, and I haven't stopped since. In fact, I'm drawing something right now, but I got to stop to take time out and talk to you all, lovely people. No, I started when I think everybody, maybe most kids, start drawing. I couldn't think of a reason to stop drawing, where all my other friends stopped drawing. I said, no, let's keep drawing. It's fun. And and I got more and more influenced. My parents were very supportive because I guess I showed a proclivity for it, but nonetheless, they certainly didn't dissuade me from it. My dad certainly didn't dissuade me by reading us, me and my brother. He would read us from Pogo when we were 6 years old. And even though we didn't understand half of it, I think the drawings were like getting seeped into my brain. And like, I always chided my dad, if you don't want me to be a cartoonist, you shouldn't have read Pogo to me. But, and the other thing too, my dad was very much interested in like showing us, here's the Marx Brothers, and here's Laurel and Hardy, and here's Buster Keaton. He's a big Buster Keaton fan, which I adore Buster Keaton. That's another influence would probably be Buster Keaton, obviously. And so, and here's the artwork of UPA, the great experimental cartoon makers of the 1950s. We saw all these things, not to mention taking us to like, the opera and the ballet and, Gilbert and Sullivan and the symphony. And it's interesting. I was looking it up. Noticing that I was looking up when I first saw Modern Times when I was a kid. It was in New York City at the Bleecker Cinema. Not there anymore. It was an art house, a famous art house at like 1114 East Bleecker or something like that. But I was also noticing that there was like there was a production of some like a opera, and the top seat was like $4.50 or something like that. Wow. Granted, $1962, but even that's like $35 by inflation, or $40 for a top seat. It was much cheaper to see great, entertainment like that. Same with Broadway. You see Broadway shows for like about the same amount. So it was easier to get to see culture. I got to see a lot of culture, and all that sort of poured into my head and helped me as a cartoonist. And I have to tell you, there are many, many animators who also have an affection for music, either just knowledge of music or musicians themselves, and often very good musicians. So there's something about animation, and maybe cartooning as well, and music that goes hand in hand. Certainly, it's always a case of comedians. Many comedians are fine musicians, or drummers, or something like that. The rhythm of music, the rhythm of comedy and timing. So it all goes into play. But all this got poured into my brain, and I decided to be a cartoonist, and then wanted to be an animator. And that's why, after 2 years at the University of Maryland in the DC area, I transferred to UCLA to the animation workshop. And that brought me to the fair city of Los Angeles.
So you just said, I'm going to be an animator. And then you did. You became like, you've been working for the top TV show probably ever in animation ever. There's nothing that even compares. There's not even a TV show. Is it the longest running TV show probably, right?
Longest running scripted primetime show. Yes, by quite a bit now.
Congratulations.
And yeah, that's an interesting thing. Just like doing that, and then the Tracy Ullman show came up because I was working on a film called One Crazy Summer, 10 minutes of animation in it, and I met this wonderful animator and filmmaker, Bill Kopp, who was directing the animation in this movie, which is directed by Savage Steve Holland. They were pals at CalArts. And one of the other animators was a guy named Wes Archer. And Wes Archer had worked for a small company called Klasky Chupo. Klasky Chupo got the Tracy Ullman Show contract in 1987 to animate Mac Groening's stuff. And that's how I got involved in The Simpsons at the very beginning. It was the three of us animating on the Tracy Ullman Show. And then Bill went on to follow his own star, and Wes and I continued on the Tracy Ullman Show till we animated 48 Tracy Ullman Show shorts. And we worked hard at it because, if nothing else, we wanted to, experiment with animation for ourselves and, have something for our portfolio. And we didn't know we were going to be started working on an iconic TV show, but that's what happened.
Wow.
One of the things that probably helped that along was Who Framed Roger Rabbit coming out in 1988, which got, I think, people interested in wanting to do animation again on TV because it was such a big hit. That was sort of like the big turning point in the fortunes of animation, I would say, because prior to that, it began to look like, is animation going to be something, or should I concentrate my energies in commercial art, which was a choice I was thinking of. But no, Roger Rabbit changed all that. And of course, James L. Brooks always said that I approached him after having a few cups of courage, as he says, in other words, maybe a little drunk, and introduced myself and was talking so enthusiastically about animation and probably said something like, we should make The Simpsons an animated series. He said that kind of gave him, if not the idea, but certainly the enthusiasm, just because he had never met somebody on the animation side. So it gives me a lot of credit for that. So it's a good thing I got drunk at that party.
Cup of courage. Would you like a cup of courage? Yeah. Maybe I need a cup of courage.
Yes.
Maybe I need some of that cup of courage that worked for you. Okay. You know.
Courage or courage, beverage or poison.
Yeah. You gotta bottle that up and sell it. We can promote it on the show.
So what happened is Wes and I became directors. Can you guys direct? We said, sure, why not? And so in 1989, we started from the Tracy Ullman shorts, the Tracy Ullman to the Simpsons TV show. And the first thing I did was design the opening title sequence, working with Matt Groening and Sam Simon. And Wes worked on the turnarounds for the models, because when we were doing the Tracy Ullman show, we didn't really have model sheets. We just looked over each other's shoulders and how you're drawing Homer this week and how you're drawing Bart this week. And then we're like, well, we got to codify this now because there's going to be a lot of other people drawing. And that happened. And then then the show became a big hit. And, I was supervising animation director and given a producer credit, and it was great. And then I got a call in 1996 from DreamWorks about the possibility of being a director. Now, I've been working on The Simpsons now since '87, so it's been 9 years. And I thought, well, this can't last forever, right? Well, how would you know? You wouldn't know. And it seemed like an opportunity to direct animated features. So I went to DreamWorks and worked with a wonderful guy named Will Finn, and we started the ball rolling for The Road to El Dorado as co-directors. But then I got a call from Pixar, and I said, I'd love to live in San Francisco for a little while and see what it's like. And so I went to Pixar and ended up working with actually a friend of mine. I met him before, a lovely guy, Pete Docter. Pete Docter, you may well know, was a brilliant director, now the chief creative officer at Pixar. But he was doing Monsters, Inc. So I came on to be co-director on Monsters, Inc. And I had a wonderful time and learned a lot about doing animated features, which helped me when I came back to The Simpsons, again, to be supervised director, but really to be there to direct the Simpsons movie. And so it all worked in that regard.
And a nice big symphony. You've just been putting like all the musical notes together, and it's singing. It's coming up roses, roses, roses. Wow. What a fantastic story that there's so many people that like are trying, and there's some people that are just so successful. Sometimes I think it's meant to be, but your like creativity and your talent and your passion just comes across. And I see so many musical instruments. How do you even have time to play a musical instrument?
Well, I think I would have, but I don't really. I try as much as I can. But I have probably far many tubas than I really need. But I can quit buying them anytime I like. It's easy to stop. I'm not addicted to them. But I also have some other instruments. This is you can't see this, ladies and gentlemen. This is a bass trumpet. It's like a trumpet, but it's an octave lower, so it has a trombone range. And I can sort of play it because the mouthpiece is a trombone mouthpiece, which is bigger. I'm not really good. I'm not a good hand on the trumpet. It's a little too small for me.
And you're in a band, right? Can you share with our audience your band? And that's a cool name.
Yes, I'm in a band called Vaughn and the Villains. Vaughn and the Villains is a great name. It's a very big band, and obviously this whole situation of the last year has made it very difficult to play. So hopefully we'll get back to the show again. I hope. I'm also in another band called the C-Funk Brass Band, which is a funk brass band out of Long Beach, and I play with them. And and of course when I'm at Burning Man, I play in the Burning Band. and also occasionally with a band up north called the Los Tranquilos Woods Community Marching Band.
Wow, marching band. Wait, you're in a marching band. Vaught and the Villains. I love that name. And where were you playing? Like, where, if our audience comes as a tourist or they live here, if they want to come see you in Los Angeles, do you play in Los Angeles or where do you play?
We don't have a regular spot, if that's what you mean. You know, we get a gig when we can get a gig. So, and obviously, there haven't been very many gigs, ladies and gentlemen, the past year. Maybe you've noticed.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, would you like to play something for us real quick on the show live? Ooh.
Sure, hang on a second.
Okay, great. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have David Silverman, and he's going to play something for us.
Let's see if it doesn't distort too much.
Is something of yours? Because Spotify, we have to have permission. Is it something original?
Well, this will be public domain. Don't worry about
perfect.
that.
Perfect.
It was written in the late 19th century.
That's amazing. That's so beautiful. I mean, that's a bit. How much does that tuba weigh? It's a tuba, right? I mean, you could tell that I'm not that skilled in music.
Pounds, yes.
How many pounds?
23.
23 pounds. Wow. And you have some beautiful equipment. I wish our audience can see. But so Dave, I wanted to ask you some questions. Like when you were doing the film version of the animation Monsters Inc., and was there a difference between TV animation and film animation? Can you give us any tips? Like what is the big difference?
Yes, the main thing I would say, and when you do film animation, I would say you discover the film and the storyboarding of the film. TV animation is such a fast on a schedule that the script is actually king, and you end up like kind of, especially for primetime kind of, shall we say, sitcom style animation, the script is king and you storyboard the script. But in the film world, I would say the primary difference is you have a script and it's just kind of the blueprint, and the storyboard process is much more of a story writing process with the board artists. So when you have a screenplay writers on a script for a movie, especially a Pixar, a Disney, DreamWorks, anyone, Illumination, all these sort of films, it's really a misnomer, who wrote the screenplay, because the story department had a big part in writing it as well. Not just visualizing it, but actually writing material, coming up with story material, coming up with lines, coming up with jokes, visual and verbal. A lot of that comes in the story department, not just on who's credited on the screenplay. So that is probably the primary difference, I would say. And getting that and cracking that story in the storyboard in the film is a very difficult process. And just most times you start out with this one idea and it's a different idea when you're finished with it, or it's the same idea but the story takes turns you did not expect it. And part of it, we all know that going in when we're doing it. We say, okay, this is the story that we have. We got to throw something up on the wall, and literally getting it up on reels, and then see where the story takes you. It's kind of like, it's a lot like workshop, like for like a theatrical workshop or something like that. It's the same thing. You're in there with a group of creative people and story artists, and you just kind of hash it out and figure out that story, and then everything else hopefully falls into place.
Yeah, and
there's a big vast thing about that too, in terms of coming up with a style and coming up with the art direction and coming up with the production design and the sort of the design sensibility, and and then of course all the things, particularly we're doing CG. What challenges are you opening yourself into?
Oh, that's amazing. And I want to ask you real quick, was there any characters that they designed for you in The Simpsons, or did you ever get to do any voiceovers for fun, like an Alfred Hitchcock moment?
Well, I guess I have. I mean, I've physically appeared a few times on the show, usually as an editor, but at Burning Man, I play the flaming tuba. You can look it up online, folks. The tuba that as a sousaphone that shoots flames out of the top. And we did an episode where we went to Burning Man, or as we call it, Blazing Guy. and they made me a character in it, and they also gave me a few words to say. So I've had a few lines as myself as the flaming tuba guy.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Flaming tuba. Yeah, and so amazing. And then so how do you go about if anyone wants to like try to be an animator, do y'all have any workshops or programs, or do you ever hire anyone, or it's just a show that doesn't need anybody because you have like the same people probably working for years and years, right?
We have, I mean, with people can apply. I mean, most people that apply have probably gone to a school like Cal Arts or, UCLA or USC or Sheridan in Canada and other places, or they studied on their own. But I mean, it's like that, people studying to be animators who apply to become layout artists. I mean, we're one of the few, I think we're the only show now that actually employs artists to do key animation before we send it over to our Korean studios to do the in-between and the final painting. But we do all the key animation at our studio in town, key posed out, basically. And in Korea is mostly doing the in-between work. So, and we're like one of the last studios doing it that way. I mean, some do it to a certain extent, but we do it very extensively. Yeah, I mean, occasionally we have openings. I can't think of that. I'm not in HR. I'm sorry. I don't really know what to do with that.
So I want to know. So also, what are you working on that's coming up? What did you do during COVID? Did you write or anything, or what were you doing for fun? And what's coming up for you that we can share?
During COVID, The Simpsons kept going. We didn't stop. We all worked from home. I mean, where I'm sitting right now has been my office for the past year, basically. Almost to the day. Well, a year and a month now. So we didn't skip a beat. We continued working. We did full seasons, and we're on to the next season. I also worked on a show called Duncanville as consulting producer. It's a really great show. I highly recommend it. It's very funny. It's extremely funny. It's Amy Poehler and Mike and Julie Scully. Mike Scully was a showrunner of The Simpsons for 4 seasons, and he's terrific, and his wife is terrific. They're both very funny writers. And Amy Poehler does 2 voices, does the voice of Duncan, the 15-year-old kid, and also the voice of his mom, and she's amazing. I mean, you hear the 2 voices, you can't believe it's the same person. And it's a great vocal cast and a very funny show. I finished a film just before COVID that's going to come out at some point called Extinct, written by 3 Simpson writers, Joel H. Cohen, Rob Zebnik, and John Frank, and co-directed by my friend Raymond Percy, former Simpson artist and director. Lately, then he went to Disney, and also not only was a story artist but also a voice artist. He was the voice of the sloth in Zootopia. Anyhow, so that's kind of an interesting. It's a really film. It's not Simpsons, but it's a lot of ex-Simpson people. It's a very funny CG film. And it came out beautiful looking, and I don't know how we did it so fast, but we did.
Yeah. So they can check out it's called what is it? Extinct, right? Extinct. And is that going to be?
I'm not sure when it's coming out, but it'll come out sometime.
And where do people see, like, how can they keep up with what you're working on, David?
Well, I don't know. Well, you can follow me. You can probably follow me on Twitter. Although I've been very delinquent lately, to be honest. I've been working so hard on other things. But I'm at Tubatron, Tubatron, Tubatron on Twitter, and Silveruti with 1 R, Silver Ootie on Instagram, which I hardly ever post on, but I'll try to get better, so you can follow me. People say, what are you on to? I said, well, I'd like to tell you what I'm doing right now, but I can't really tell you because I've signed these non-disclosure agreements. So I can tell you about them when they come out.
So you can follow David on Twitter and his Instagram. And thank you so much to David Silverman for being with us today, director producer of The Simpsons, The Instinct's coming out, and Dunksville, and many more good things to come. Thank you, David.
Thank you. Great to talk to you. Thank you, everybody.